Hey everybody, I'm Chase Butice, modern mystic and astrologer. I'm going to be talking about the nodes, the North and South node, transiting into Aries and Libra on July 17th, which is in 10 days from the time of this recording. This is a very, very important transit. Astrology is always changing, everyth's always moving, so there's constantly new transits, new energies, new passageways, new combinations, retrogrades. The nodes are something different. The nodes are more about our collective destiny, our collective karma. They affect us on an individual and collective basis. And to me, honestly, just intuitively, since I've been reading astrology, the nodes have always been the most important, if not one of the most important aspects in someone's chart. Because a lot of times, it's the clearest indicator of where are we heading, a destiny point. A lot of times astrology is very much, it's a cosmic imprint of your body, soul, spirit at the time of birth. And there's a lot of stuff in there around karma and patterns and doshas and ways of being and dominance in different elements that really helps you understand yourself on a very deep level. It's been such a profoundly important tool for me in my life. But the nodes of the moon and their movement, I just always go back to the nodes. I always go back to my North Node. I always go back to what does this mean for me now? Because I'm always changing. I'm always going through these crazy astrological transits that we all are always going through. And when I come after one of those cycles, transformative cycles, I always come back. What does my North Node mean to me now? And I can tell you it's changed. My perspective of it has changed quite a bit. So I would ask yourself, if you haven't, to look at your birth chart. And if you need help with this, I do readings. I do birth readings and birth chart readings. But to look at your birth chart, find out what sign your North Node is in and what house. And from there, you can begin to uncover what this actually means, what this means for you, what this means collectively for yourself, your life, your journey on this planet. Now, talking about humanity, our collective transiting nodes, right? How we are all in this together at this moment, what this means for us on an individual level. For the nodes, for the North Node of the moon, so the nodes, if you aren't super familiar with them, they indicate, a lot of people have so many different explanations. And astrology is just, it's an archetypal science. So it's an intuitive science. So many different people have many different explanations. And it's really what you feel in your bones to be right. That's how I interpret astrology. I use outlines and then I go for what feels right to me. For me, South Node is a lot about where I've been, what's easy for me, what's comfortable. It's kind of like it's like something you've been wearing for a long time and it's really, really comfortable. You feel really comfortable in it, but you're also kind of growing out of because you're kind of getting bored because you've kind of mastered it in some way. Some people say it's karma that is ripening. Some people say it's past lives. It's all those things. You pick what feels right for you. For me, I like to look at the South Node as where I've been, what's easy for me, what I've come into this life kind of really, really comfortable with. North Node is where we're heading. It's what in this life we cannot stop ourselves from moving towards, like no matter what, no matter how hard we want to, think we have to do a certain thing. It's what the universe is guiding us towards, no matter what. And it's funny for me, and it's usually something that feels kind of uncomfortable. It's usually something that you feel very drawn towards, but you feel really, it's almost kind of like you get a little red, you know, like you get blushed if you kind of enter into that energy. For me personally, my South Node is in Sagittarius, my North Node's in Gemini. What's hilarious is that for the longest time, I always was like, I don't really like Geminis. I mean, these are such blanket, silly statements that I don't even make anymore. But when I was younger, I had a lot of really bad experiences with Geminis. I've been betrayed by Geminis quite a bit in my life, especially Gemini men. And, you know, I kind of made up this story about Geminis, how they're two-faced and they you know, they don't really know who they are and very mercurial, and you know, so I kind of really didn't like that identity. What's funny is that as I've gotten older, especially over these past couple 3 years, I've come to see the power and the wisdom in Gemini, and how it really, to me, Gemini is the encapsulates the quote, the Oscar Wilde quote, be curious, not judgmental. Especially in the era that we live in, that is just full of cancel culture and full of judgment. If one person does one thing wrong, they're, you know, it's like off with their head. Gemini to me is actually the energy we need in this era. It's really about synthesizing opposing sides, curiosity, looking at something from every angle, wanting to understand. You know, it's the third sign of the zodiac, so it's really about discovery. Information, and I think at its highest, it's really about, it's a channel, but it's also really about synthesizing polarities, which is the absolute energy that we need on this time on planet Earth. So anyway, that's my story with Gemini. That's my story with my South Node and my North Node. South Node in Sagittarius, you know, it's funny because I remember I went to a psychic one time, this really fancy one. I think it cost me like $600 or something. She was like, worked for the FBI, and she told me one of my past lives was, she said she saw me standing on a podium during Greek or Roman times and like reading out, speaking to the public, like the news. And I thought, you know, and also I think some sort of pulpit, some sort of preacher, some kind of that kind of energy. That's very Sagittarian. And Sagittarius is much more, this is what I think, this is what I've learned. It can be a little bit more arrogant. And Gemini is much more, a little bit more, of course there's highs and lows of every sign, right? But this is for me, how I've interpreted it. Gemini is much more mercurial, much more curious. It doesn't have quite the same amount of, I think, arrogance or something like that, and it's something that's been very humbling for me in this lifetime to really absorb and to really, really grow into. So anyway, that's my South Node and North Node story. But in terms of now, where we're at, and if you need help with discovering your South Node or North Node, you can contact me. I can do a mini reading. I can do a 30-minute reading. We can just do a simple reading on the nodes. I think it's so awesome. The nodes are so awesome. Anyway, so collectively, South and North Node. So collectively, we're moving. We have been in South Node Scorpio, North Node Taurus, which has been intense because Uranus has also been transiting Taurus since 2017. And so there's been a lot of activation of Tauran energy and Scorpio energy. And I'm just over it. Anybody who's familiar with Scorpio and, you know, the Scorpio-Taurus axis, you know, it's just intense. That last, that May eclipse we had just knocked me on my ass. So many things happened. My cat died, Anubis, like, disappeared, the coyotes in the desert, all kinds of things. A lot of intense things happened, and I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm ready to shift the nodes now. So, North Node Aries. What does that mean? What does that mean collectively? What does that mean individually and collectively? North Node Aries, man, it is exciting. North Node Aries is exciting. It is the first sign of the zodiac. The Aries energy is very, very strong in itself. It's the energy of I am. I am. You know, your rising sign, when you know, there's the sun, moon, rising trilogy in astrology, it encapsulates the first house. The first house is the house of Aries. It is the house of the self. It rules the body. it rules instincts. It is very much, just has a very solid sense of self. Very solid sense of self. I think a lot of what's happened over the past couple of years has been a lot of it's been a lot of peace at any price. So the opposing sign of Aries is Libra. That's the South Node. That's where we've been, which is a lot of peace at any price, which sounds kind of paradoxical because we're in a time of a lot of conflict. But I do think a lot of individuals these days, that for fear of stepping on someone's toes, for fear of being canceled, for fear of not being liked or being outcasted, choose peace at any price. And when we live in a culture that's becoming increasingly more and more and more censored and authoritarian, peace at any price kind of means the absolution of your voice. And that's like the opposite of Aries. Aries is like wild, authentic, truth-telling, bold. You know, it's the archetype of the warrior. It's the archetype of the individual. Extremely independent. And I'm really excited for this energy to come on stage and to come on board, because I think there's going to be a lot more fierceness in our culture, a lot more people kind of rejecting this idea of cancel culture, this idea of getting swept under the rug, this idea of kind of playing it cool to blend in so that they don't rock any boat. That era is kind of leaving. And we're entering much more of an individualistic and truth-based, authentic energy with Aries. Aries is the sign of courage. And, you know, with that, whatever which way you want to think about the way the world is these days, there's a lot of fear-based programming. And Aries is coming on stage and she is rejecting all that shit. And she's saying, I'm not going to live in fear anymore. I want to live my life. I want to live boldly. I want to live audaciously. I want to experience life. I want to feel alive. There could be a rejection of technology. There could be a radical reassessment of what it means to live. You know, that first sprig of energy that comes up from the ground, that is born from the earth, that first thing that comes up is Aries energy. It is the sprig of life. And life cannot be, it cannot be controlled by fear. It's the opposite of fear. That sprig, that energy, that energy of love cannot be overruled by fear. And that is kind of like the core of Aries. So I don't know. I think it's going to be a really exciting time. I think that if you want to, think about what this might mean for you in your chart, what this might look like for you. Like I said, I would look at where in your chart the nodes, the transiting nodes are also going to be hitting. For me, it's at the very top of my chart, on the very top of the MC. This is a big one for me. And I was thinking about this. So a good thing to reflect back onto is, what were you doing June of 04 to December of 06? I think I got that right. I'm dyslexic. Yeah, I think it's June of 04 to December of 06. What were you doing? What were you doing during that time? Or is it, I'm dyslexic. It's one or the other. But I have thought about this quite a bit, and that was a revolutionary period in my life. So ask yourself, what were you doing during that time? For me, when I think back on that time period, you know, I had been in college. I didn't really want to go to college. My mom insisted that I go. I really felt like after 20 plus years of institutionalized schooling, that I really didn't enjoy. I needed a little bit of time to kind of find myself. And my mom was very afraid I wasn't going to go to college, probably because who knows if I would have, and forced me to go. And I just drank and partied and barely got by on C's and didn't care. And, you know, I feel like I lived in a haze from about 13 years old of depression, uncertainty, just kind of skating on by. You know, I was born a really psychic and sensitive child, and when puberty hit, things got dark for me. And I did not know how to handle reality. I did not know how to handle the world. And I think because I barely remember high school and I only remember parts of college. And I really just escaped. And I lived in a haze and I barely kind of got along in life. I didn't have anything I lived for. I didn't feel good about myself. I didn't know what I was capable of. I didn't think I was capable of anything. I had never really found my power. I had never really decided that I was going to live, that I wanted to live. And I kind of hit a point, if I can remember correctly, in college where I felt suicidal. I mean, I never would kill myself because I love my family and I just never would. But when you feel that way, I remember it was very, very real for me. And I decided in that moment to change my life. And I started going to yoga. That was the first time in my life that I'd always wanted to go to yoga. I started going to yoga, and I'm extremely flexible. I always have been. And going to yoga changed my life. I started applying myself in school. I started getting straight A's. I lost about 75 pounds. And I started going to therapy. For the first time in my life, I started exploring the spirit world. I started accessing my gifts. I took control of my life, of my energy. I wasn't inundated by the pain of the world, which I think I had been for many, many years. And I decided to choose life in very Aries fashion, to choose life. And that's what happened to me from June of 2004 to December of 2006. I completely revolutionized my life and changed my existence. I transformed mentally, physically, spiritually, 100%. I got full 4.0. I lost 75 pounds. I started doing yoga. I started making art. I became a yogi. Like, I was one of the best in the class. I mean, not that it's a competitive thing, but I had never in my life I had always just been kind of in the background, feeling really sensitive about the world and feeling inundated by the pain of the world, to be honest with you. So that's kind of that's like my story of the last time the North Node and the South Node were in Aries for me, Aries Libra for me. And I'm just stoked because I feel like in some ways that this last couple of years has repeated, it's like a low key repeat. You know, I gained a lot of weight the last couple of years. I've been so unhappy. I felt so inundated with the pain of the world. I've gone through massive spiritual transformations, and I can feel myself on the precipice of great, great change. And I just hearing this Aries energy coming back, this North Node Aries energy, man, if there's one thing that just screams life and what it means to live, that is Aries. So I would just think about what that means for all of you guys, what you were doing during that time. If it's something negative, think about what was positive. Think about what positively happened to you during that time. Maybe some shit hit the fan, because a lot of shit hit the fan for me. Like I said, it was extremely dark, and I decided to change my life. But yeah, what did that time look like for you? And what could this next July 17th, hallelujah, era for the next year and a half look like for you? Something to contemplate. So those are my thoughts on the nodes switching sides. And if, like I said, if you have any questions or you'd like a reading, please let me know. All right. Sending you guys love.